Um, well, it doesn't seem like it's working. I'm not sure if anyone can see me or Bethany out there. I hope you can. But if not, hopefully the voice will suffice. It's great to join you today, and I'm glad that you're here to hear a little bit more about what we do and hopefully get involved yourselves. Let me, in the absence of my webcam, let me put up the slideshow again. That seems to make the most sense, although maybe we can do it like this. No, not working. Okay. Well, that's too bad. Anyway, my name is David Taus, and like I said before, I am the Northern California Program Director, and Bethany is joining me from Southern California. She has been wonderful enough to organize this webinar for us, and I will be leading most of the activities today. So when the time comes for Bethany to talk a little bit about what's going on in Southern California or interject some comments about our program, I'd be happy to make sure that she is heard. And if any of you have questions at all during the session today, please use the question box that should be located on the right-hand side of your screen. You can ask questions, and we'll see those pop up. If you ask a question, I might wait until the end of a presentation section in order to answer it. But just to give you a little bit background about ourselves, so I am a former high school teacher. I taught science, both biology and psychology, and in this picture you can see me with my students. This was, I think, in 2005, and these were my AP Psychology seniors when I was teaching in Boston Public Schools. After that, I moved out here and I taught in a charter school in San Francisco. And following that, I founded and ran a nonprofit that provided tutoring to one-on-one tutoring to students who needed it but couldn't afford it. And now I'm working with Encore. I want to give Bethany a chance to introduce herself as well.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, David, and thanks for joining us today on our webinar. We hope to be pretty informative and also answer any questions that you have. Much like David, I have a background in teaching as well. I actually joined a program called Teach for America after my undergraduate degree in Minnesota, and I taught high school math and science in the Hawthorne area at a charter school called Da Vinci. And kind of like David, I moved on from teaching. I actually moved on from teaching because I saw the importance of getting teacher voice heard in policy decisions that are made at the local and state level, and joined an organization called Educators for Excellence. But from there, I realized that one of the biggest things we've got going on in education is that we really need more talented teachers and just talent in general in our schools and districts. And so I became a recruiter for a local charter organization in the San Fernando Valley here in the LA region. And then I found Encore, and what excites me so much about Encore is that we're bringing in amazing people who have experience in the industry, real-world experience that I actually did not have when I went into teaching, and they're really, you all are able to answer that question for students about how am I going to use math and science in the real world. And we're also addressing that huge need for math and science teachers in California. And so welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you. So that's a little bit about us, but we'd love to hear a little bit about you too, and this is also a way for us to know that our question box is working. So if you would be so kind, we'd love for you to type into your question box who are you, where are you coming from, and specifically which profession do you identify with right now. So if you're able to, we'd love to see the question box being populated. This is what they call wait time in the profession. See that nobody's figured out how to use the question box. Oh, one person. Thank you. Han is an electrical engineer. Welcome. And as people are coming into the webinar, please experiment with the question box or the chat box to see if you're able to use those. But if you do get a chance, we'd love to know who you are and where you're coming from. Okay, we can keep that going kind of on a rolling basis, but let's keep moving here because we want to make sure to get to all the information that we have for you today. So thank you so much for joining us. Before we really kick off, I want to let you know that this is going to be recorded, so at any moment later on, if you want to revisit all this information, we'll have it as a YouTube video, and we also can make our slideshow available to you as a PDF. So all you need to do is email us, and our emails are going to be at the end of the presentation. Everyone's coming in now. Amanda, Kelly, and Valerie, thank you so much. So we've got environmental scientists and mathematician and an engineer as well. It's great that you could join us. So it's opportune that all of you have this sort of background because our organization is all about serving you. We are a nonprofit, and we recruit, transition, and support people who work in the STEM professions, and STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And our job is to enable people who work in these professions to explore teaching and public education. And that happens in several levels, and we'll talk more about that later. But we think that it's a really important and great thing to get STEM professionals involved in public science and math education. So that is why we exist. And we have a big vision. We hope that we reach many, many students in California. Why are we here? Well, there is a very big need for high-quality math and science teachers out there right now. I'm sure that it's a common kind of rhetoric that math and science in the United States is not faring so well these days. And we agree that that's true, but we think that there's something else that we can do. So I'm going to turn it over to Bethany right now, and she can tell you a little bit about the problems that we're facing as a society with math and science.
Yeah, thanks, David. So David touched on the need for some great math and science teachers in, well, nationwide, but also specifically in California. And Encore works in 5 regions of California: the San Diego area, Orange County, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento. And we should also just mention Bay Area because we're generally in the Bay Area up there in the San Francisco region. So you'll notice here that we have a graph of the math CST achievement in 2012. And CST is a California state exam in math that every student in the state of California will take. And you can see here that our students are not doing so well in algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. Just 34% in Algebra 1 in 2012 and grade 11 are proficient or advanced on the Math California State Standard exam. And that's pretty low. That means, you know, at least 70% are not proficient or advanced, and that means that they're performing below average. But if you take a look here at our next graph, we have math CST achievement disaggregated by socioeconomic status, and it's even it's just even worse when you look at it based on socioeconomic status. And you can see that the dotted line is actually students on free and reduced lunch status, which means that they qualify as low income. Their families are considered low income families. And this is actually what we call across the nation as the achievement gap. So you can see that just looking at the dark blue, the gap there, about 20% or so between the students that are considered middle or higher income compared to their lower income peers on the math achievement. So it's pretty stark there. That is the achievement gap going on in California.
Great. Thank you so much, Bethany. Just to echo that, it's upsetting enough on the previous graph that we saw that, you know, under 35% of juniors in high school are proficient at Algebra 1. But when you see that it's actually double the number of students who are not receiving free and reduced lunch are proficient than the students who are. That's very upsetting. And unfortunately, as this graph will show you, it's not just along socioeconomic lines, it's also along racial lines too. So we see that white students throughout the past 35 years have consistently outperformed black students and Hispanic students in measures of educational progress. And that's a very upsetting thing to know, and this is another piece of evidence about the achievement gap or the opportunity gap that you hear about. So this is a huge issue in education these days, and we believe that the way to solve that is to make sure that there's highly qualified teachers working with students who are in the most need. However, we find that that is even a challenge, and that the demand for high-quality teachers is far outstripping the supply. There are too few education majors who are interested and capable in going into these high-need schools and serving students properly. And we also find that there are too few people who major or excel in the STEM fields who want to go into education. And so this little infographic here, it shows you that people often are teaching out of their subject area expertise in math and science. And this is old data. This is from 2000, but I believe that the current statistics still hold, that many people are teaching out of their content expertise when it comes to high school math and science. So what did this all add up to? Well, really what it means is that students in California and in the nation, they need help, and we're not doing well serving them. This is disproportionately true of low-income students and of minorities, and this is why Encore exists. We want to make sure that people are moving into situations to help students in high-needs communities, specifically low-income students and minority students, to make sure that they have an equitable and fair shot at exceeding all expectations and excelling in the math and science fields. So we know implicitly this is a huge problem, but I'd like to highlight 3 reasons why this is a big problem. So the first is individually, the jobs of tomorrow involve a lot of math and science. We hear about 21st century jobs, 21st century skills, and many of these jobs and skills require even a foundational working knowledge of math and science via computers or other technology. And so if on an individual basis students don't have this competency, their personal ability to excel in the job market and have a career and a life of their choosing becomes limited. So on a personal level, it's very important to have students excel in STEM. I think on a social and societal level, it's also important to have our population filled with people who know something about STEM. And maybe this is a bit of a hyperbolic statement, but we do believe that science and math innovation really is the driving force behind the economy. And if we don't have enough people going into STEM fields, then our economy will suffer from that. And finally, not to be too dour, but we're facing as a society a lot of big problems. And I've highlighted climate change in these pictures as one of those problems. These problems are not easily solved, and we think that the best tools we have to solve these problems is knowledge and ability in STEM fields. So if we aren't equipping people with the skills and tools that they need to solve these problems that we're leaving for them, they're really in a huge disadvantage, and we don't want that to happen. So it's, I think, not to be overdramatic, but humanity's best shot at sustainable survival to make sure that the next generation has some STEM competency at the very least. So with all of these problems and all of these deficits and all of the things that we know need solving, how do we move forward? What is the best way to solve that? Well, the government came up with a 5-point plan, and this is a strategic plan put out by the Department of Education 2 years ago. And of these 5 points, I've highlighted 3 of them in red, and the red points refer to the K-12 initiatives. Points 3 and 5 refer to upper education, college, university, and community college. But I think what we can affect in the K-12 realm boils down to number 1, 2, and 4 here: improving instruction, making sure that 100,000 new K-12 STEM teachers are in place by 2020. That statement was given in 2010. It was 10 years ago. And we're halfway there, but we're nowhere near 50,000 excellent new K-12 STEM teachers. So we're still working on that. We want to make sure that youth are engaged in STEM, and this means that they have an authentic or kind of relevant or real-world experience that really gets them involved and connected with science and math. It's not enough to make sure they go through a chemistry class where they're memorizing the periodic table. They really need to connect with the material. So that's number 2. And then number 4 is to serve groups historically underrepresented in STEM fields. And this means low-income students, and this also means ethnic minorities. And women as well. There was an article about women in STEM that I read this week, which was very inspiring. So we believe that we can address issues 1, 2, and 4 directly and head-on with the work that we're doing. And what we do is we recruit, train, and support STEM professionals to teach and tutor in California's most needy students in math and science. Now, why is this the best solution that anyone has come up with? We think it is. Well, we believe that the way forward is really to get people who have been there and who have the expertise to go into schools and share that with the next generation. Why do we think that? Well, STEM professionals really are solid on their content. You know your stuff. You know what you're talking about, and you won't be in a situation where you have someone teaching out of their subject area expertise if you go back and work with students. You're passionate about your area of expertise. You really get excited about the things that you read and the things that you do every day, and I think that excitement and passion is infectious, and you can share that with students. You can also answer the question of relevance. This comes up a lot, and disproportionately in math as opposed to science, students might ask, well, why do I need to know this? How is this going to help me? What will this do for me? And I believe there's no better person to answer that question than someone who has had that as a tool in their tool belt as they've gone through their lives. And you can say very authentically, well, here's what I've done with this knowledge. Here are the jobs that are available if you have this knowledge. And here are the doors that can open for you. I think that's a very powerful thing to say. In that way, I think STEM professionals can serve as role models to younger generations. A lot of students in disadvantaged communities may not have ever met a professional engineer or a lab scientist. Or maybe they've never met a doctor outside of the doctor's office. And they think implicitly, this is something that's not for me. This is a world that I don't have access to. But I do think that if we take STEM professionals and place them in schools with students in some capacity, then those students will have access to these worlds and these opportunities. And just think of the amazing guest speakers or the field trips that a STEM professional could organize in a school that even I couldn't, coming basically right out of college and going into teaching. So for all these reasons, we really think that the solution to all the problems in science and math education in this country center on getting professionals involved in education and placing STEM professionals in teaching situations. Bethany, is there anything you'd like to add at this point, or if there are any questions out there in the audience, I think now would be a good time to field some questions. So I can take 15, 20 seconds and just pause.
David, I see a question here from Kelly. What is the first step to start this career of teaching? And actually, I think you're going to address that in the next section.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I see that now. Thank you, Kelly. We will tell you all about how to get involved. It is a daunting process, and this is really why Encore exists. Okay. Well, barring any questions, let's keep rolling. So, as you see from this graphic here, Encore is really the bridge in between a profession in STEM industries and teaching in a classroom. We make that connection really, I think, easy and accessible for people in a way that it wouldn't be if they were just doing it on their own. Here are examples of some of the folks that we have working with us. On the left, you see Genevieve and Laramie. Now, these folks were STEM professionals. Genevieve was a journalist and worked on science, and Laramie was an environmental engineer. They are now both full-time classroom teachers. And then on the right, you see Jack and you see Ellen. They are not full-time teachers. They decided to become tutors, and they volunteer at least once a week and help students with their math or their science. I know Alan is working up in the Bay Area, and he's at Woodside High School, and he does AP Calculus tutoring every week. So there's many different entry points and ways to get involved. And like yourselves, these were people that worked in industry and decided they wanted a different involvement professionally and personally. So they've joined us. This link here to YouTube, I'm not going to click on it, but it's a great video, and we have some of our educators speaking firsthand about their experience with Encore, and they can speak about it in a way that I never could because I was not an Encore participant. So I encourage you to visit that video at some point. If you go to YouTube and you just type into the search box Encore, E-N-C-O-R-P-S, educators, you should find that video as well. So some stats about Encore right now. We are located in Northern and Southern California. We specifically serve the San Francisco Bay Area, Sacramento, Davis, Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Diego regions, and we're working on expanding past that, but right now that's where we lie. We work with pretty even split in terms of math and science, and we work with a little bit heavier on the men's side in terms of the demographics of people that come in. We have a lot of folks with advanced degrees. Over 70% of our people either have masters or PhDs. They've spent an average of 17 years in industry before coming to us, and we have a lot of different placements and partners that we work with to get people involved in schools and with students. And yet we're still only scratching the surface. There are huge amounts of need that we aren't properly addressing, and so we are working hard on getting our numbers up and getting more and more people involved. Okay. Amanda, I see your question that came up. I'm going to get to that in just a minute. The question is this program only for those with real work experience in the sciences? I'll get to that in just one second. So what we offer to people with our program, which by the way is free of cost, we do not charge for these services at all. We offer people ways to get involved on the ground right away, which includes placements for tutoring and also placements in real classrooms where you can shadow a teacher, help them out, help out during group work time, and really see what it's like firsthand in the classroom. That is what we refer to as our pre-service experience. Everyone that comes into our program goes through that, and then at some point we will ask them, how do you want to handle your future with education? And some people say, I just want to keep volunteering, and that's great. Other people say, I want to go get a teaching credential and I want to become a full-time teacher. And so for those folks, we help them with that as well, and that can be a very daunting process. So we help by giving advising and guiding around how to get your teaching credential, which programs are available to you, how much they cost, how do you get scholarships and financial aid. There are definitely ways to get it paid for. We also give people support with the subject matter tests called the CSET exams, and these are actually pretty difficult tests. Everyone I've talked to that took the math test said they had to brush up a little bit before they took it. So we give people study guides, and we can organize study groups and give you resources for that. One of the best features I think people find is that we give everyone access to schools and to networks when it comes time to find a job. So we have a great reputation, and people know that people who come out of the Encore program are going to be really reliable and high quality. So a lot of hiring happens through Encore as well. We offer ongoing professional development, and that takes many forms, online webinar style stuff as well as in person. And I think that's a great supplement to continual learning and growth of teachers. And in these institutes, we call them, we have veteran teachers who have been in the classroom, we have volunteers, we have people just starting out, and everyone's in there learning together. It's really cool. And finally, this is maybe underrated at times, but we have a cohort of STEM professionals who are all in a similar place in their lives, who are able to access each other and kind of share their stories and rely on each other for support if that's needed. I think it's a really important thing to be able to have a cohort, and I know when I was in my teacher credential program, I relied on my cohort a great deal. So we provide a cohort for people as well. Okay, and this is a graphic that depicts kind of the pathway through Encore. We need a 2-year commitment from all of our participants, and depending on which pathway you choose, those 2 years may look different, or they will look different. So we start out on the left-hand side with recruitment, and this is where people will apply. They will go through an assessment day or an interview day, and if they are accepted, we start them all at the same time in the summer. So we have one event that's going to happen this year on June 26th through 28th, and it's happening down at UCLA. We will pay the expenses of room and board for everyone who attends, and we will even give a travel stipend to people who live far away, because we want you there if you're going to be in the program. And that's our kickoff. Our Summer Residential Institute is our orientation. From there, we help people choose a placement that's closer to them for their volunteering. And starting right away in the fall, when the school year begins, we put people in their placements. Excuse me. So that'll happen throughout the fall. And at some point in the fall, either Bethany or myself will ask people, so, how are you doing? What do you think about this? Do you want to keep going with your volunteering, or do you really want to become a teacher? Are you interested in making a career change? And people will say one of 3 things. The first thing they'll say, or they may say, is that they are content to volunteer, and they just want to keep doing what they're doing and stay at their job, and that level of involvement to us is great. We think that's a wonderful thing. And so that's depicted by the blue arrow at the bottom of the screen. We call that STEMX, or STEM Expert Tutoring. And we expect that people will stay in their placements or continue to tutor with us for 2 years. And of course, they're more than welcome to continue to tutor after that, but we expect a minimum of 2 years. And then the other thing they could say is, well, no, I want to be a teacher. This is a really interesting thing to me. So that can look like one of 2 things. The green box represents what's called a CTE, or Career and Technical Education Program credential. And this is something that's newer and not as well understood. We'll talk about this in a minute. But in short, CTE, or Career and Technical Education classes, are electives that are taken in career pathways in schools, in high schools mostly. And they're organized around different industries. So there's engineering, there's information technology, there's biomedical science, and all of these different pathways need teachers to teach their courses. So that's one way to get into the classroom. CTE, the credentialing process, is shorter, and in some ways less thorough, but it gets people up and running a lot quicker, so that by the start of the 2nd year, a CTE teacher could be teaching full-time. And then the final pathway is what you see in red. This is the single subject pathway, and single subject means core subject. So when you think about the classes in a high school curriculum, you're thinking about chemistry, and you're thinking about Spanish and U.S. history and algebra. Those are all single subject or core classes. So that pathway, it's more traditional, and it takes a full year in a credential program that looks a lot like graduate school to complete. So for that pathway, you do your applications in the fall and spring of your 1st year, and then your 2nd year is dedicated solely to the credential program. And then people who go through that will be ready to teach full-time by the beginning of their 3rd year. We're going to revisit this graphic in different ways throughout the rest of the presentation, but I wanted to give you an overview of the pathway forward. Okay, so everything starts out with a volunteer placement, a pre-service placement. And that can look like one of 3 things. We have 3 tiers of entry for that. The first is tutoring, and people have a very good idea as to what tutoring looks like, and you can see here a picture of actually, this is our executive director, Catherine Wilcox, and she was a participant in our program a couple of years back, and here she is tutoring some students. We give a lot of training for people going into tutoring. Sometimes if you volunteer to tutor, you get thrown in and there's not a lot of support or training, but we are making sure that people are going in well supported. The second tier I referred to earlier is called guest teaching. This is where people will work within a classroom and shadow and kind of learn from a mentor or host teacher. And it's great to have the consistency of relationship with students. It's great to see it on the ground, and this is a kind of ramping up. It's a little bit more intense than tutoring, where people would start as an observer in the classroom, and then they'd work their way all the way up to actually leading instruction on an activity and teaching the class by the end of it, and receiving feedback from an observation by the program director and by the host teacher. The third tier, we're actually just working out now. We haven't gotten the details down, but we call this curriculum-based teaching. And there's certain opportunities out there that enable a individual to come in and really from front to back teach their own class. They can bring their own curriculum into it, or they can use a curriculum already developed. And this is, I think, the most intense form of volunteer placement. So we expect everyone that goes through the program to do one of these 3 things in their first semester or even first year with us. And from there, that really gives them a lot of information and experience as to what they want to do next. If this is for them, if they want to keep going, or if they just want to maintain their current level of involvement. Okay, there's a question out there I see from Jill that says, what if you already have a lot of experience tutoring? It's a great question. If that's the case, then we would recommend and suggest that you enter the program either at the guest teaching or the curriculum-based teaching tier. And it's not a 1, 2, 3 sequence. We really work with you individually to make sure that you have an appropriate placement based on your skills and your previous experience. But Jill, I'm going to unmute you very quickly and just make sure that I've answered all of your questions. Jill, are you there? Okay, can't hear anything, but I hope I have answered your question. If not, then you can ask another question in the chat box. Thank you. Okay. We have answered your question. And Amanda, I will get to your question now. We're going to get into more detail later. But yes, this is a program that is specifically for people with professional experience in math and science. Our minimum requirement is that people have 3 years of professional full-time experience in either a math or science-related field. And if you have questions specifically about you, what that means, then let one of us know. Let Bethany or I know, and we can talk to you offline about whether or not you would meet those requirements. Okay, great. I'm going to unmute you right now. Whoops, moving forward, but I'm going to unmute you right now, Amanda, to make sure I've answered all of your questions.
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you. Okay,
thanks, Amanda. Okay. Kelly, I see you have a question too. Next steps. We're going to get to that. So give me about 5 minutes and I'll tell you how to get started. Okay, let's keep going here. So we want to place people in locations that are convenient and close to them. Whoops. And so we have placements in both Northern California and Southern California. Here are examples of some of the places that we place our educators. And hopefully what you can see is that there's something near you. So that's Northern California. And here is Southern California. Bethany and I are currently working on gathering our what we're calling a menu of placement options, and then at our Summer Institute at the end of June, we make that available to everyone, and we help people select the best placement fit for them. Oh, more in San Diego. I didn't see. Okay, great. Okay, so there's also professional development. And this is an important part of being a teacher. I think that it's important when you get involved in education that you have a lifelong learning orientation. And so you're always improving. You're never kind of done getting better at being a teacher. And we support that by providing a lot of training and opportunities for dialogue and discussion. And we give readings to people, and we're able to really direct people to resources and thinkers and ideas and seminars, and internally as well, classes that will help people improve. So you see on the left-hand side of the screen some of the topics that we talk about. And the kind of penultimate moment for our professional development is our Summer Residential Institute, which takes place, like I said, on June 26th to 28th. Okay. In addition to that, there's a lot of mentoring and coaching, especially for folks who are looking at a transition. So Bethany and I have both been there and done that. We were former teachers. We are former teachers. We've worked in high needs schools, and we are able to kind of give advice and guidance around, you know, what is necessary and what is the best way forward. We also have a lot of information about credential programs, financial aid options, and we have a lot of connections in our respective areas that will help people get oriented. But we also know that all of the Encore educators, the cohort of people that we work with, have a lot to offer as well. And so we encourage a lot of crosstalk and dialogue between Encore educators, because I think everyone can learn something from someone, and it truly is an amazing group of people. And it's not all serious work. Sometimes we have happy hours and social events as well. We give guidance with teacher credentialing. We've talked about this, and I will go into very briefly, we can't answer everything now, but what goes on in single subject programs versus CTE programs. It's important to know, I'll just back up for 1 second, that we are not ourselves a credentialing provider. You need a license by the state, and usually the organizations that have that license are universities. We are not a university. We cannot issue a credential, but we do refer and talk with a lot of the programs that do issue credentials. You see some examples here, and we are a partner with each of our educators to find the right program for them. So the CTE credential. This is, I think, a more involved topic than we're going to have time to really get into now. But there are a lot of things that point career changers towards CTE as a really good possible fit. So I want to talk about that. Career and technical education, or CTE, is about pairing college preparation with career preparation and really embedding learning in an authentic and real context. So this comes from the school of thought that also has vocational ed as a part of it, but I think vocational ed is not the proper way to think about CTE credentialing and CTE classes. Vocational ed was sort of a dead end for people who, you know, were not college bound, and so they take home economics or wood shop or something like that. CTE is not that. CTE is rigorous. CTE is being invested in heavily right now. As you can see here, there's $1.25 billion with a B dollars that's being put into CTE. And this is largely because we recognize that we need to train current students to become employees and workers in certain industry sectors for which there's an economic need. And we will share what those sectors are in just a minute. So right now, the CTE classes that are taught in California are taught as electives. And usually what this means is that the schools that host them have career tracks within each school. So once you become a freshman at school X, you will choose, well, I want to be in the business track or the engineering track or the healthcare track or the media arts track or something like that. And when you choose your track, you take all your core classes, of course, but then your electives are designed to coincide or correspond to the track you've chosen. So in theory, the students that are in these courses have chosen to be there. I guess that's only true as much as any teenager is choosing to be in school, which on any given day may not be true. But that is how it's set up. And these are truly rigorous courses. These are meant to be content-wise just as involved and rigorous as core courses. The difference is that there's an applied characteristic and quality to them, where you're not just learning formulas in a vacuum, you're learning how they're used on the ground in each of these industries. As far as credentialing goes, the CTC, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, has basically made a separation between CTE teachers and single subject teachers, and these credentialing pathways look a lot different from one another. If you have a single subject credential, and they're starting to crack down on this pretty hard, you will not be able to teach a CTE course, and vice versa. And what we're finding right now is that the CTE credentialing courses are happening much faster and much more cheaply and with lower barriers to entry and requirements than the single subject courses. The theory is that they're doing this because they know that the current teachers, the single subject teachers, need to get this new credential, and they want to make it as easy as possible for them to do it. But for those of you out there who want to get your CTE credential and you don't have your single subject credential, the process to do that is the same thing as the single subject teachers. So in general, CTE credentialing happens much quicker and happens at a lower cost, and there, believe it or not, is not a student teaching component to this credential. That makes us a little nervous, and so we supplement that lack of experience with our own volunteer experience. But that's generally what CTE is all about. Like I said, there's a lot more to it, but let's kind of hold it off there. So here are the different categories of classes or industry sectors in CTE that we will support. As you can see, the single subject courses are recognizable to you because you probably took those courses as well. Foundational means they are for middle school. And then on the CTE side, these are the industry sectors that we support. There's 15 of them. Some of them aren't math and science related. So for example, there's hospitality, and that we determined to not be as math and sciencey as the other ones. So what you see here are the industry sectors that we represent. Okay, Bethany, I don't know if I've missed anything, but if you think there's anything you'd like to add about credentialing or CTE, I'd love to have you share that.
Sure. Thanks, David. The only other thing I would mention, well, maybe just two things, is in terms of the career and technical education credential, we found that this was a great option for our educators because it takes into account your at least 3 or more years of industry experience. And so when you get a CTE credential, the courses that you would be taking are not going to teach you the content that you would be teaching, but rather how to teach that content. So they do take into account your expertise as a STEM professional. So I would just mention that, as well as David touched on this a bit, but we have so much more information to share with people that join our program around teacher credentialing, and we also coach in submitting applications as well as, choosing the right program for yourself.
Great, thank you. I see a question from Jill. How many Encore Teachers placements are happening in CTE versus core subject? Does it make sense to do both? The answer is that CTE is on the rise internally, and I think a lot of our people are excited about it because it does represent a quicker pathway into the classroom. We are advising people to invest in their own training as much as possible. But really what it comes down to is you need to ask yourself what you'd be most interested in teaching. And some people say, wow, I really want to teach algebra and geometry. And if that's what you want to teach, then there's really one way to do that, and that's single subject. Some people say, well, I really want to teach finance and business, or some sort of accounting class, or maybe a coding class underneath informational technology. And if that's the case, then CTE makes a lot more sense. So that's, I think, one of the big determining factors. But CTE is on the rise internally, and people are getting a lot more interested. Whoops, I'll go back for 1 second. Okay, I see that someone has raised their hand. And Marisol, I'm going to unmute you and see if you have a question.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think I'm in the wrong meeting. I suppose I'll be in a meeting that started at 1, but since I'm here, I think Bethany is directing. Is that right? Do you have another one coming at 1?
No, we planned it for noon, but Bethany is here.
Okay, great. Because I actually I went to school in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And then went to high school in another country, and I took some chemistry classes there. And I would like to know if I can have, my CTA credentials for chemistry and math at the same time.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. So when you apply to a CTE credential program, you'll have a meeting with their staff, and they will look at your education history, and they will also look at your work history, and that will be the determining factor as to which credential you could pursue, which industry sector. CTE technically does not require a college degree, although we require a college degree for our program, and CTE does require 3 years of full-time professional experience in that field. We also require the same thing.
Okay. Okay, so yes, so my major, I study here. I went to a school here at DePaul University, and I have a bachelor's degree in accounting and management. So according to what you are talking about, I should be like applying toward to those categories, like math can be one, for instance?
So yeah, it depends on whether single subject or CTE is interesting to you. So single subject looks a little bit different, and like Bethany said, there's a lot that goes into this decision, and we can't address it fully right now.
Okay.
CTE, basically you would meet with the program coordinator for that credentialing program. They would look at your resume. They would see, oh, you have a bachelor's here, you have this work experience, therefore you would be, able to qualify to teach the finance and business industry sector, or whatever the case may be, depending on what you've been doing professionally.
Okay.
That is how they determine your subject matter expertise.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Marisol. Okay, let's keep going here, because I know there's questions on how to get started. And how do you get started? We want you to inspire the next generation of innovators. So we do have baseline requirements. One is that you live in one of our service areas. And unfortunately, we can't really bend on that too much, because we need to make sure that we're able to place you, and we have all of our placement contacts in these service areas. So make sure that you live in either the Bay Area, LA, Orange County, San Diego, or Sacramento, and Davis as well. We need you to have worked at least 3 full years in a STEM profession or a STEM-related profession. We need you to be eligible to work in the U.S., which either means you're a citizen or have a green card or have a work visa. Because we don't hire people, we cannot be visa sponsors. So that has to come outside of us. And for our program, we need that to make sure that everyone has an undergraduate degree with at least a 2.5 GPA. And that's based on the minimum entry requirements for credential programs. We also work with people who are not currently in education. So if you already have a credential, even if it's way in the past, we're here to work with people who have never really done anything in public education before. So if you already have a credential, we're not the good fit for you. Okay. What you do if you're really excited about this, and we hope you are, is you go to our website. And you go to encore.org/, oh, big typo, I apologize, apply, A-P-P-L-Y, Or if you go to the main website, there's a big orange button that says Apply Now. And there's an online application there, and that's what we need from you in order to get things started. It's just that simple. The application has lots of background information. We ask you to upload a resume, and then we ask you 5 short answer questions. And we do hope that you take some time to answer those questions. So usually the 3 or 4 word answers don't sit well with us. Okay, so once we have your application and we read it and we determine that you are a good fit, then we invite you to one of our interview days. And the interview days are actually wrapping up for this year, this hiring or recruiting season, but we'll start again in the fall for the next year. But if you are interested in participating starting this year, you would need to attend one of these 8 remaining interview days. And you see there's a couple in April, and then a couple in May, and then one in June in Sacramento. The interview day involves giving a little sample lesson, having a one-on-one interview with an assessor, writing sample, and a group discussion. And from there, we're able to either say, you know, this is great, we want to invite you to participate, or say that this isn't the best fit for us right now. If we say, yes, we want to do this and we're ready to get started, then we'll send you an offer letter. And what we need from you is to sign the offer letter. And the important thing about the offer letter is that it outlines expectations. So the one expectation that I see a question on right now is that you participate for 2 years. And the question is that if you're looking to relocate or get married, is it okay to switch regions? Yes, that is okay. That's totally fine. We understand that, you know, there are other things in one's life that matter, and really, to be quite honest, if push comes to shove, if you start our program and you relocate to Japan or, you know, Antarctica, there's nothing we can do about it. And we ask you just up front to be cognizant that we do expect this, but we understand if life happens. So we want to put it as an expectation that, yes, this is a 2-year commitment. And Valerie, I know that you had this question, so let me unmute you to make sure I answered everything. Valerie, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Did I answer everything that you were wondering?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Valerie. Okay, so beyond that, we need to know that everyone, at least the new people, are going to be in attendance at our Summer Institute. And that's, again, on June 26th through 28th. We want to know that people are going to work with students for at least 1 academic year as a volunteer. We want to know that people will, in good faith, take advantage of all of our training. Again, this is not something we can force you to do, but we don't want to accept people who are just going to kind of not participate in our community. So we want to make sure that that's an expectation up front. We want to know that if you're on the credential track, that you are going to earn your credential within 3 years. And like I said earlier, the longest a credential program lasts is usually a year and a summer. So we give you a little cushion for that. And that you're also going to continue to teach. This is hopefully something that's really being taken seriously, and that you're going to have a career shift. And so we want to know that we're working with people who are earnestly thinking about that. And if you decide that you don't want to shift careers, then we want at least 2 years of tutoring with us. And of course, you're welcome to go longer. Okay. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to, but I want, Bethany, if you have any other information or ideas or thoughts, I'd love for you to share them.
Great, thanks, David. I am just going to leave some final thoughts. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has joined us today. I know this was a lot of information, and if you have any specific questions about your situation, we are happy if you'd like to reach out to us individually, myself for Southern California, San Diego, Orange County, and LA, and then David for Northern California. And also, I just want to say, I really am excited that you all on the webinar are thinking about going into public education, whether that is as a tutor or as a career transition into becoming a teacher. The students in California really need you. They need to see that connection to real-world industry and why what they're learning in middle and high school is so important. And you know, frankly, a lot of students in low-income areas have never met a manufacturing engineer or a doctor, or they haven't met one that, you know, looks like them or is going to expose them to their industry as well. So I hope you'll consider applying, and we look forward to talking to you as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I want to open up the floor for any additional questions if we didn't cover something that you're wondering about. Either raise your hand if you could figure out how to do that, or you could type in the box. Nope, nothing yet. Looks like we're just being showered with thanks. Well, thank you. Really appreciate you joining us today. If you have questions, you can email us, and like I said, we'll have this whole webinar available as a video on our website shortly. And we will have the slide presentation available to you if you email us. We can send that to you. So really appreciate you joining us today. Hope you have a great weekend, and we look forward to receiving your application and working with you soon. Thank you so much. Take care.